From one of the most spectacular wonders of the world on the shore of Lake Toba in northern Sumatra, it's round number one, race number two of the UIM Formula One World Championship for Powerboating at the inaugural Kapiko Grand Prix of Indonesia. Hi everybody, I'm your host Stephen Michael along with my partner, ex-world champion Jonathan Jones of Wales, and we greet you here in lovely Indonesia, just north of the equator on a spectacular warm day, kicking off our 39th year of the UIM Formula One H2O Powerboat Racing Tour. Now the whole country of Indonesia has come out and embraced this weekend as we feature the majestic northern Sumatra region, which is well known as one of the leading tourist destinations. Now, Jonathan, you've been here for about 4 or 5 days. Give me your thoughts. The people here seem to be so warm and friendly.
Oh, they certainly are. They've made us very, very welcome, Steve. And, you know, we've had a look around the countryside, limited amount of time, but it is quite spectacular. I mean, the scenery in this part of the world it's worth a visit. And, yeah, we're looking forward to the race this afternoon, and we're looking forward to coming back here for many years to come.
The natural beauty is second to none, and the friendliness of the people are number one. Well, as we get set to go and talk about what's going on this afternoon, it's a format that's a little bit different. We're running 2 races today. We ran race number 1 earlier in the day after qualifying early this morning. The reason why everything's been stuffed together is because yesterday we got blown out in the afternoon. We had tremendous rollers. We couldn't run qualifying, so we backed everything up, and now everything is all in one day. We had qualifying about 8 o'clock. Quite dramatic, and it became a sprint race. So we're running 2 sprint races in a row, and right from the start there was drama on the right of your screen. As you can see, the boat and the second in the lineup, that's Sean Torrente in boat number 1. He is the defending world champion, and later when this race ended, the official said he jumped the start and he was penalized a lap. So as Torrente was fighting with Bartek Marszałek right there, number 77 from Poland, looking for his first victory in his 50th start, Torrente and Bartek battled back and forth the whole time. Torrente got to within 2 seconds, and then we had disaster hit just 3 laps from the end, and there you can see the driver from Holland going over as Ferdinand Zanderbergen went over on the right corner as the driver found himself crashing out of the race for the 2nd time in 2 straight races. And on the restart, what a great play and a maneuver by Torrente. He took the inside route, and he found himself a way to get around the leader, Bartek Marszałek. And at the end, Torrente crossed the line 4 seconds ahead, thinking that he had won this race. And then he found out later, in dramatic fashion, the officials threw out that lap because they said he did jump the start, and he has been relegated down to the 10th place position. Bartek Marszałek from Poland wins the race, his first in his 11-year career and his 50th start. Congratulations to him. He did a whale of a run. He wasn't intimidated, and as you can see, some of the dignitaries that are here, to the left of your screen is the H2O president, that's Nicola de San Germano, and the gentleman in the dark outfit is actually Joko Widodo, who is the president of the Republic of Indonesia, who was flown in with a huge entourage, and he came in from Jakarta earlier in the day, and he's having a great time. We've had air shows, we've had all sorts of wonderful festivities on the water, off the water, and the hundreds of thousands of fans that have come here today. Here you can see the parade route as the president did arrive, and a lot of fanfare, all sorts of excitement, and more importantly though, the fans are getting a full array of interesting things happening around the day. There you see Nicola San Germano talking to some of the ministers. There were 8 ministers here earlier yesterday, and they came back, of course, with the president being here as well. And it's quite a scene over in the presidential box right now. Well, let's talk about the course description, Jonathan, as the boats are coming out. The parade lap is just beginning, and we're excited to go 18 laps of racing, race number 2 this afternoon.
Yeah, the course very different this afternoon to what it was earlier today. It was a really technical circuit with lots of right-handers and left-handers. I think there was 9 turns with our initial course. What we've done now is we've had to bring the circuit very, very much nearer the shore. So we start off by coming down past the start pontoon, and then we turn into these 2 left-hand buoys here. And then going round from those buoys, we go way, way down to the shoreline. You can see there in the distance down there. And we come into a couple of turn buoys there. Then we go, you can see the turn buoys there as we focus in. So there's a left-hander there, and then straight right into the inner bay, the inner basin, getting really close to the crowds, swinging around there, another left-hander, and then another left-hander just further along than that, and then we turn back out on ourselves and come down the long straight about 800 or 900 meters into the far end of the circuit, and that's basically what we're going to be doing here today, mainly because the normal circuit that we were destined to run, there's too many big rollers which are coming in from the far side of the lake, and it makes these boats almost uncontrollable to drive. So another circuit, still quite technical, and it's going to be very, very demanding for these 20 drivers that are out here today.
100,000 tickets were up for grabs. They were gone in 23 minutes. That just shows you how excited everybody is, not only in Sumatra but the other islands. The whole country of Indonesia has grasped this sport by their bosom, and they just love what they're seeing here this afternoon. The weather can't be any more perfect. The wind's kicking up a little bit, and as you said, this course originally was set up to be a 2.2 kilometer race, and very much like a sombrero, but they've kind of cut the top of the hat off. As you can see, more of the fans still filing in. I don't know where they're going to be able to sit because it's just totally packed. And get a chance to maybe take a look at some of the dancers that are here. We've got a ton of people that are getting a chance to show off their skills here. Look at the fans, they're loving the action. We had the air show going on. We had 6 airplanes that were going through all sorts of acrobatic maneuvers. They were doing flowers, they were doing 360s, they were doing loops, and they were coming at each other at low altitude, and the fans were just hanging on for dear life, loving to watch the sky show, as you can see them come down, and as well as things on the water. So in the air, in the water, and on the ground, we've had a 3-tiered display of fun this afternoon, Jonathan, so far, and we have to get race number 2 in.
Yep, and we ain't seen anything yet, Steve, as we pick up Nicola de San Germano there, introducing Marit Stromo. You can see the only lady that we have racing in Formula 1 on the left of Nicola, amongst all the other drivers, and been introduced to the president, and it's a great event here, Steve, isn't it? I mean, we've had so much going on for the last 2 or 3 days. I mean, Indonesia have really done the world of powerboat racing a tremendous honour by putting on this event here, and let's hope we can come back for many years to come.
Yeah, and you had a chance to see the president along with Nicolo saying hello and meeting some of the drivers, including Bartek Marzawak, the driver from Poland, who did pick up his first victory this morning, and he's over the moon. Let me tell you, he's so excited. He is well deserved. He's a young father, and this is the first time that he has won a race. Tell you what, he ended the year in a flurry with 2 back-to-back podiums. He finished 3rd and finished 2nd in Sharjah. You could just feel the momentum coming for Bartek Marzawak with the Stromoy team racing.
Yeah, he's been on it all weekend, really, Steve, hasn't he? He got that pole position, which meant so much because coming off the start pontoon, he had a blinding start. Got into the first turn by just ahead of Sean Torrente, the Abu Dhabi driver, and he just seemed to be pulling away. He was 4 seconds up within a lap, and he held that gap until we had that accident with Zandbergen there. And of course, there was a complete restart then, and he just seemed to lose out a little bit on Torrente. But of course, at the end of the race, Torrente had actually jumped the start gun, as you pointed out, Steve, and he was docked a lap, which meant that Bartek Marzawak from Poland won that race. But to be honest, up until the stop 3 laps from the end, I mean, he just dominated the entire event. So he deserved to win that first race, and he's on a bit of a roll at the moment, Steve.
Jonathan, I'll tell you what, you can notice in the last 5 minutes, boy, I'll tell you, the wind is kicking up, and you're starting to get a lot of white caps. Tell you what, 20 drivers, 12 different nations, 4 different continents have come here. Let's take a look at the starting lineup. Bartek Marzwak, the winner in race number 1, will start on the pole. Sami Celio, 2-time world champion. Eric Stark, who is back after 4 years. In that 3rd spot, Peter Moran leading the CTIC China team. And Brett Dillard, the rookie American, the highest rookie, starting in the 6th position. Philip Rahms came from 18th up to 7th. He had a great run in race number 2. Jonas Anderson was struggling. Sean Torrente got penalized that 1 lap. He'll start in the 9th spot. The rookie Alpha Theme is in the 10th position. Farther down, you can see Comparato, the youngster who was struggling with he had stomach pains. He was having all sorts of troubles. They barely had to carry him out of the seat of the boat. We take a look farther down. Vipo and the oldest driver, and Duarte Benavente, Xander Bergen, of course, who crashed out 16. The youngster Jelf, Ben Jelf, the youngest driver on the Tour at 22. Marit Stromoy, and another rookie, Brock Cohen from Perth, Australia. Good to have him in Thunder Down Under. Then finally, Alec Vekstrom. I don't expect to see Alex start. It's a shame, Jonathan, because Alec Vekstrom has got so much talent, and at the same time, he's had such bad luck. He finished 4th in the championship with 48 points, been on the podium a few times, but with that, the engine maladies continue to mount, and he's a spectator this afternoon, and it shouldn't be that way because he's quite a driver.
Yeah, he's been so unfortunate this weekend in that they've had some technical problems there which they've been unable to sort out. So unfortunately, he's going to have to sit on the bank and watch the race, which I'm sure he's not too happy about.
As we get ready to line the drivers up, they finished their parade lap. They're circling around. Interesting thing about some facts here, Jonathan. I'll tell you what, this is the first time we've been here in Indonesia. The last race in Southeast Asia, which encompasses 11 countries in this most populous area of the world, was round number 3 in Singapore back in 2005. So it's been 18 years since this tour has been to Southeast Asia. And in the 39-year history of the sport, this is only the 17th race in Southeast Asia. And the great thing about this sport, Jonathan, in the last 6 races, we've had 6 different winners.
Yeah, absolutely. But Steve, just look at the way that this wind has picked up on the lake in the last, literally in the last 5 minutes. As the drivers look at the white caps on the waves out there, it's going to be really difficult for these drivers this afternoon out on that circuit, because the reason what we did was we've actually moved the circuit further towards the land to get away from all that very, very rough weather. But it seems to be coming in from the far end of the lake thick and fast.
And something else I've noticed, Jonathan, because this lake is so deep, it's 750 feet or close to well over 250 meters deep, the buoys, they have such a hard time anchoring them. You'll notice turns 1 and 2 have drifted away.
Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right.
They've gone farther and farther away from their original scanning point where they had dropped them in with GPS markings. So it's not only us hanging on to cardboard and other bits to help block out our screen this afternoon with our papers flying, but the buoys are also taking a toll. And I don't know what the officials can do about this. Right now, it's looks like it's a bit of unorganized mayhem out there with this water condition. Yeah,
you can see the Osprey, the rescue people that set the circuit. I mean, it's as much as they can do to hang on to those boys there. Look at the waves that are blowing up. And this has literally happened in the last 5 minutes. And very, very unusual, because yesterday we had these rollers coming in, but they could still actually get out on the water. But all of a sudden, we've got a circuit that seems to be all over the place.
Yeah, and the Osprey rescue team, what a history that they've had. The wonderful guys from the UK, and they have been real professionals in this sport for over 50 years, Jonathan.
Yep, they're the guys when somebody turns over in the boat, if there's a crash. Highly experienced people. We've got doctors on board, paramedics, and also boat handlers and divers. In the event of a boat going over, these guys are at the incident within seconds. That we've got a couple of these Osprey boats around the circuit, and they go to every Grand Prix, and they wealth of experience. They have the divers that get into the water, get the boat, get the driver out to the boat, and the front of this boat actually drops down into the water, so that they don't want to drag the driver then onto the boat, because that could create even more problems than he may already have. So what they do is they drop the front of the boat down, and then they float the driver on. As soon as he's on board, you've got the paramedics and the doctors working on him straight away. They take him to the ambulance and to the medical centre that we've got here, whether he's okay or not, because you know, with adrenaline flowing sometimes, Steve, you might think you're fine, but you're not. And they check him over and make sure that he's okay. So all these drivers know they're in really good hands with the Osprey rescue team, and they've saved many lives, mine included, over the years.
Very specialized buoys, Jonathan, very expensive. You don't want to spear one of those, because you're going to get fined at least €1,000 for taking one out. And also you could get disqualified if you take both of them out in a race. And you've been in races before where, oddly enough, they ran out of buoys and they couldn't finish the race. Now, we haven't seen things like that in 30 years, but I mean, that does happen.
Yeah, you know, it can always, we're always up against the elements of the weather. And look, you can see the F1 H2O weather station there. You could see that little beacon that spins around on top. I mean, that's been pretty stationary for the last 2 or 3 days, and all of a sudden it's really picked up. You can see the rollers there, Steve. See the boats onto the pontoon, the rollers coming in past them.
It's hard to believe as you look at those shots with the waves coming off and how strong they are. Literally about 15 minutes ago, it was a mill pond out here. There was no way of action, and this has all been building up. And as they talked about, it's something that happens every day in the wintertime here, and it's only getting worse right now, Jonathan, which is a shame.
Yeah, in our broadcasting station, it's really rattling around here. We've got the wind blowing everything in every direction as we hang on to see what's going to happen out here with the race this afternoon.
Luis Ribeiro, he's the UIM official. He is the race director. He helps make all the decisions. And obviously he's got a tough one to make right now when you've got so many people. A lot of people have flown in from various islands of Indonesia. This is a country that's the 3rd largest population of any country in the world. And everybody's been talking about this national news for at least 2 months. Everybody's ready and geared up for a great race this afternoon. The early race was fantastic, and they were hoping against hope to get this second race in, but I think it's a bit dodgy right now, Jonathan. I'm not sure.
And as we speak, Steve, the wind is picking up even more. You can see that the flags that we were just looking at a few minutes ago have so almost disappeared. Some of the tents that the teams are actually working from, they've had to batten the hatches down on those, and my goodness, how can the weather change just like that in a matter of, what, 5 minutes? Quite unbelievable.
Yeah, there you see the desert palms blowing in the breeze here, and the fans are loving it though. It's funny because some of the fans, you know, there's a lot of umbrellas that were up earlier protecting themselves against the sun. With the sun going away just a tad and a lot of the wind kicking up, a lot of people have taken their umbrellas down, and even light jackets are being put on. So the temperature range is really changing, which means there's a possibility of a cold front that's coming through, not by much, maybe only about 5 degrees, but you know, that's enough to change the weather pattern and the wind blowing. So as you look down the start pontoon, there is boat number 7, part of the CTIC China team. Well, they're going to try to do their best to get this race going. We'll have to wait and see what happens. There are the officials that are near the start lights. Now, what we do normally on these race courses is the format is a modified Le Mans start. We'll get everybody lined up in place, and then they'll have a situation where it's either a boat or else across the banking, they'll have a light switch that will turn on 3 rows of lights, and when they go off, then we go racing. So we're far from that, though. As you can see, the Osprey rescue team is dragging around some of these buoys trying to set them. But again, those lines are so long, Jonathan, they're going to just keep moving.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, you can see these boats head on now. The cockpit is actually facing us. It's a catamaran design boat. It's about 17 foot long, but it's the sponsons either side are very, very shallow. So when the conditions are fairly flat, you can see the Victory boat there. They just glide on top of the water. You're almost a racing driver and a pilot at the same time. The problem you have is when you have these big winds and these rollers coming in, you've got to be so careful with these boats because they are so near to the water that they can actually nosedive at high speed. And bear in mind, we've been running around here around 140 miles an hour all day. When you come to a grinding halt, when that boat nosedives, it's like hitting concrete. So obviously the UIM officials have got to make sure that the conditions are absolutely right for these boats to run out here this afternoon.
All right, as the Osprey Rescue Team continues to try to shelf the buoys into position, again, they can use GPS to mark the exact spot, the location they need to have it come down in. And of course, it takes a long time for the line to sink down into the depths. Now, from where they were just at, we have no clue how deep it was, but we do know on the far side of the course, in the first race we had today, it was over 200 meters down into the bottom of the lake. So this is a lake, remember, that was 70,000 years ago, a bit of a mountain, and then it got blown off, and it's the biggest mountain lake ever existing in the world thus far. So I mean, it's very historic and very exciting to be here today. It's magnificent.
Just give the people an idea. You picked up the Victory boat there. The driver sits in a cockpit in the front. He's strapped in with a 5-point harness. Looking at the Victory boat there, you can see the engineer there holding the canopy open. The driver's actually inside that little hole there. He wears a crash helmet. He's strapped in with a special harness. He's got a life support system. The boat itself is about 17 foot long. The engine is an outboard on the back, 400 horsepower. It's a V6 engine. And you can see the driver sitting in there into that cockpit. In the event of an accident, say the boat nosediving or flipping over, he's completely, let's just say he's super safe in there because that cockpit is actually made from carbon fiber, but it does mean that if he does turn over, he's got a life support system, he can breathe until the Osprey Rescue Team that I spoke about a little bit earlier on can get to them, get the driver out and get them safe.
And as you can see, the bobbing up and down there is the man that won the race. Oh, that's his teammate. Now, that's Marit Stromoy. She's from Norway, a wonderful entertainer. She's won races. She's won pole positions. She's probably the leading woman ever to race in powerboat racing. She won Sharjah back in 2015. There's the man. That's her teammate, Bartek Marzwak. All eyes were glued on his performance this morning, and boy, everybody was so excited about seeing him win. He's been here for over a decade, and he finally got his victory, and his lovely new wife was here working the radios for him. You can imagine the glee that they had, knowing that he had won finally his first race after coming back-to-back podiums at the end of last year. He tied for 6th in the championship after having a slow start, and for him, it's nothing but upwards and onwards, and he leads this championship now by 5 points with 20 points for a victory. You get 15 points for second place, 12 points for third, 9 for fourth, all the way down to 1 if you finish 10th place. And that's where Sean Trente is your current world champion. He's won 3 out of 4 years. But again, a great day for Bartek Marzwak.
He's a revelation, really, Steve, isn't he? I mean, you know, he's come from nowhere. He's got 2 of these boats that are built up in northern Italy, and the first one he's been running for the last 3 or 4 years. There we see the latest boat that he's got. And for some reason, he seemed to be halfway down the field. He was really a mid-pack runner. And he's gone back to this boat that he's known for quite some time now. And all of a sudden, he's just come alive with it. I mean, the boat seems so well balanced on the water. It performs well. It gets off the line really well. You know, it just seems to do everything that he wants it to do. And like you said, he's had 2 podiums leading into this Grand Prix. And, you know, pole position this morning, led the first race by a country mile. He seemed to have everything under control, and watch out for him here this afternoon because he means business.
Well, we'll see if he can get off the beach this afternoon on the start dock. You can see the 20 boats that are lined up, drivers from 12 different nations, 4 different continents. It's great to have a driver back from Australia, the rookie Brock Cohen getting a chance to add to the field. You know, it comes from a large array of Aussies that have raced in the past in this sport, going back to Craig Bailey, who had a wonderful year in the 90s, and then of course the Trask brothers and their son who had a chance to race, and now it carries on with Brock Cohen, and we'll see how he can catch on. He's still in a bit of a learning curve, but I'll tell you something, he's got a pretty good resume, Jonathan, as he is a long-time Australian Formula GP final winner.
Yeah, and we got quite a few rookies. You know, we have over the years we got 4 this year. You know, over the years we've sort of been with the usual crowd of drivers, but we've got some new blood there. We've got Brent Dillard, who's doing so well. Great driver in America. Decided to come into Formula One with the Team China team itself, and doing a great job, and I mean 7th in his first Grand Prix, so that was some performance out there this morning amongst a grey of other drivers. Great to see somebody back from the UK, Ben Jelf. For many years we used to have up to about 8 or 9 drivers from the UK competing in Formula One, but in recent years there's been pretty much nobody, and great to see we've got Ben Jelf, the British driver, who's you know, just starting out, but I'm sure he's going to make some solid progress in the years to come.
Yeah, that's very interesting, the transition that you're talking about. Years ago when I jumped on board back in '95, we had 22 drivers, 11 of them were Italian, and many Brits, including yourselves, in the lineup. And over the years, now we're down to just 1 Italian, and there's more Finns in Sweden that are in this race lineup than there are Italians. All right, the word is now we're just within 2 minutes. This is going to be exciting to see how these drivers can handle these tough water conditions. Less than 2 minutes to go for the start of race number 2, round number 1 of this UIM Formula One World Championship for powerboating at the inaugural Kopiko Grand Prix of Indonesia. I'm Steve Michael, your host, along with my partner of 22 years, ex-world champion Jonathan Jones of Wales, and we greet you here on a lovely but windy afternoon. This would be race number 2 of the day, and now we're down to the final minute as we again will look across this race course and look for the light structure to come on. And again, we'll wait for the lights to come on. We'll come down 1 row at a time, and once they go off, we will go racing. So the excitement is building. Just seconds away, all eyes glued on the official starter. The 30-second board comes up. And now the drivers focus in on what they have to do. You got to get a jackrabbit start. You want to get the whole shot down to the commitment buoys. 1 row of lights is on. And here we go. We hold our breath. And the 2nd row, the 3rd row is coming on, and they're underway, and they explode away from the dock, and they come off, and they head out down across the commitment buoy about 450 meters as they go racing down toward the commitment buoy, and they'll circle around. And remember, the lineup is how they finished race number 1 as they tiptoe their way in these tough conditions out here. And as they circle around and they come down, the green flag is out, the whistle's being sounded as they slide through the commitment buoy, heading down in toward turn number 8 and 9 in the old circuit. This is the first of 18 laps, Jonathan, as we go off from this crescent moon-shaped circuit. This is something new. And here goes Bartak Marzawak, your leader, out in front, and moving up and challenging in that 2nd place is Team Abu Dhabi driver pushing hard, and it is Thaniel Quimsey, who started down in that 6th spot. He had pushed his way toward the front.
And Steve, the boats are jumping around all over the place with those rollers coming in from the far side. They just are hanging on for grim death as they complete their first lap. But out in the front, is it changing? Is Thaniel Quamsi? Look at the conditions out there. These are certainly not perfect for Formula One racing. And you can see there Bartek Marsalak, all of a sudden he was leading the race and the conditions have got so bad, he's now falling way back in the field. And the guy that's taken the lead is a number 7 boat. That's Peter Moran, Team Team CTIC China. My goodness, these conditions are almost undrivable. They've got to be watching that they don't nosedive these boats in this lap.
Peter Moran, who started in the 4th position now, has moved himself up into the lead, and why not? You know, he's a long-distance runner. He's used to racing at Rouen in France, where there's ugly conditions and boat traffic and those old traditional 24-hour races. So I think he's quite at home at these tough conditions. And Thaniel Quimsey trying to stay right up there with him. So Bartek Marczak led that first lap, but right now it's Thaniel Quimsey trying to close up and get past Peter Moran. But Peter Moran, as we talked about, is used to these tough conditions, and around he goes, and they continue to move, but they're only going about 15%, 20%. Look at that, Jonathan. Some drivers are almost coming to a complete stop. These conditions are just so terrible. The drivers are trying to stay up, and you see Peter Moran almost launched the boat, teetering on the edge of disaster, somehow saved it as he almost stalled it completely, putting it up on its tail, and was able to gather it back up again.
Totally impossible, Steve. I mean, they're down from 140 odd mile an hour going down that back straight to probably 30, 35 mile an hour as they hang on for grim death, trying to get around that circuit. And a lot of them, did you see that boat there? That is Ben Jelf, I believe. The entire boat almost sunk as he tried to get his way around the circuit. You can see the Dubai boat there. Did you see the water coming over the front?
Eric Stark, the driver from Sweden, who started this race in 3rd place, he literally submarined it. Oh, what a shame. Drivers already dropping out. They're going, this is not going to work. It's not manageable. And on the replay, you can see Eric Stark, who totally submarined the boat yesterday. And behind him, you can see one of the Maverick Racing boats go up, and there's Stark again as he's trying to show off his prowess of driving the boat into the water, but literally these conditions are unmanageable, and there's no way we're going to be able to run these 18 laps, Jonathan, which is a real shame for these 100,000 plus fans who have come here for race number 2. Now, we ran the first race of the day, which was fantastic, but here in race number 2, it's just doesn't seem to be able to work today.
Yeah, but Bartek Marczak, the Polish driver, he's still out there, Steve. He's hanging on, and he's thinking, hang on a minute, if they're going to call this race, I want to make sure that I'm in the lead boat, because he may get some points for competing out here this afternoon, picking up Jonas Andersen there, 2-time world champion, and my goodness, I cannot believe what they must be going through around the circuit, Steve. I mean,
we've done this before, Jonathan. We had this problem in St. Petersburg years ago, in Russia, and in Istanbul in Turkey years ago, where we did get the race in, but these conditions are tough. There's still the green flag out there, so some drivers are giving up the ghost, including the world champion Sean Tarente in that boat number 1 you see in the distance in the background. And it looked like the young driver from the Netherlands got out and on the water, Ferdinand Zandbergen, and he's calling it quits. So slowly but surely, these drivers are saying enough is enough, and Kale Vipo is parking his boat. As you look out and you see the CTIC China leader out there, that's Peter Moran from Rouen, France. He's taken over the number 1 spot because his ex-father-in-law, Philippe Shep, a 3-time world champion, went out in glory when he won his final race ever of his career back in December in Sharjah, and had a Cinderella season, wrapped things up, and then retired and turned the reins of his number 1 boat over to Peter Moran, who is out there. There's Philippe Shep. There's the 3-time world champion, who has got his first win 10 years ago in Kiev, Jonathan, in the 2012 series, but that was a match race.
Yeah, Steve, most of the boats are actually coming into the pontoon. They realize it is totally impossible to compete out there. In fact, it looks like it's pretty dangerous. Somebody could get hurt, and it's going to be interesting to see what the UIM officials decide. That's the world governing body. Luis Ribeiro, who's the race controller for this event. At the moment, I can still see the green flag is out there, but for how much longer, only time will tell.
Well, As we get a chance to take a look at Peter Morin, the driver, and now they're showing the checkered flag. That's going to be it. That was a great try, and they did their best. The drivers thought, well, maybe we can do this. And after about 1.5 laps, they go, yipes, this is not going to work. Alexandre Bourgault, by the way, in the number 74 machine, the driver from the Maverick team, he hung in there. He said, I'm not giving up. He was out there in second place, the highest he's ever had. Thaniel Quimsey stayed out a long time, too. And most everybody else has called it quits. And that pretty well shuts down the action for race number 2.
And you could just see there, you could see Peter Morin almost nosediving that boat as he tries to find his way around the circuit. Came off one of those rollers, came off the top of it, and actually the boat started almost being like a submarine as he tried to make his way around the circuit.
All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get a chance to look back at race number 1. The conditions were so much nicer this morning, and we got 18 great laps of racing in. It was our sprint race number 1, and a lot of major surprises in that race after we had started the day with qualifying early in the morning, 8 o'clock, but this was 12 noon. Let's go to race number 1 just before the start. Sit back and enjoy because it was a fantastic bit of action. So we're getting closer and closer. 2 sprint races this afternoon. And we hold our breath as the first row lights, second row lights. The lights go off and they're underway and explode away from the dock. And 10,000 horsepower go racing across 435 meters, now charging their way up toward the commitment buoys. And as they push along the side, Eric Stark trying to make a move. Torrente on the outside and 2. And Torrente is fighting to get himself into that number 1 spot as the green flag is officially out, as the field of drivers come whistling around. Bartek Marszałek trying to stay up into that first place position, and he got a great start. Look at the Polish driver pull away here 10 laps in, or 10 seconds ahead as he got around turn number 8. Torrente's about 10 boat lengths back. Celio is pushing hard. He started 4th, he's up into 3rd, and then a 2-boat battle between Stark and Jonas Andersen for that 4th place position.
What a start by Bartek Marszałek, the young Polish driver there. He's doing everything he needs to win this race. Came off the line, I think he was running a slightly bigger propeller than Sean Torrente, who seemed to have the legs on him. But as he increased in speed, he had a bigger propeller, more top-end speed, and he was able to get into that first turn just ahead of Torrente and start making his way forward. He's got clear water ahead of him, Steve, for a while. This is where he could really make up some ground.
All right, as you can see, Jonas Andersen trying to push up on Eric Stark, but Stark is able to pull away. Jonas Andersen dropping back. I wonder if the 2021 world champion may have a bit of a problem here, but he comes charging up on the outside. A good battle going on for 4th place, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that Jonas has definitely got the legs on Stark there, sitting in 3rd at the moment. And you can see that Jonas is on the outside, Stark's on the inside. Jonas seemed to try and get ahead of him in that last lap. He tried to cut inside him, but he got some dirty water. It got rather rough. He had to back off, and Stark is still holding him off.
Stark out there on the right of your screen. Victory team based out of Dubai. And the 36-year-old driver from Sweden back on the tour. First time in 4 years. You got 2 Swedes right there fighting for the 4th. And in the 5th spot, trying to get up into the mix in that 4th place battle, Peter Morin, the driver out of France. But right now, the leader, Bartek Marszałek, he's holding about 2.5 seconds. I noticed that Sean Torrente in the last lap was able to pull out a few boat lengths on Sami Celio, the 2-time world champion. So he's got about a 2-second cushion right now between 2nd and 3rd place as the field comes by. Now remember, this is a shorter than normal race. This is a sprint race. So I'll tell you what, you want to do it all right now early on. There's no waiting for a good time. Right now is the good time, and you got to make hay when the hay is in the barn.
You're dead right, but look at the way that Bartek Marszałek, he's pulling away from the rest of the field, Steve. This is something that we have not seen for a long time. Torrente hanging on in 2nd, but there he is, Bartek Marszałek, sponsored by Olin, the Polish oil company, and they've got to be really chuffed at the performance that he's putting up this weekend. As you said earlier on, Steve, he's already had 2 podiums. He's been knocking on the door for the last 2 or 3 races, and he is driving his socks off out there.
Bartek Marzowak, our leader, starting his 50th race, still looking for his first victory overall. He's got 3 podiums, and he is doing his best to try to make good his escape from the 3-time world champion Sean Tarenti, who's hanging right in there. The difference really between the top 5 is not much of a difference in the speed, but the top 3 are really close, within 5 seconds of each other.
Yeah, and the good thing for Bartek now is he's got that clear water for probably the next 5 or 6 laps before he starts coming up against the back markers. So this is where he can really open that gap between himself and the Abu Dhabi driver Sean Tarenti in that second slot.
0.3 of a second, the margin for Bartek. He has increased that on the world champion. It's up to 3.15 seconds, the difference between first and second. Meanwhile, Tarenti has gained a little bit more ground on the 3rd place, Sami Celio, who has dropped back about another half second. And then Eric Stark is 5 seconds back of Celio, with Jonas Andersson just a second behind him. So very close, the top 3. Then there's a bit of a split between 4 and 5.
Yeah, Jonas then, he certainly hasn't given up, but he's under pressure from Peter Moran, the French driver, who's pushing for all he's worth. We do know that that French boat has got some serious pace out there. Watch out for the number 7 boat in the next 2 or 3 laps.
As we look at Peter Moran, a veteran driver who has replaced his ex-father-in-law, 3-time world champion Philippe Shep, who stepped aside. And they have brought on the American Brent Dillard out of South Carolina. The 36-year-old rookie's in the number 8 boat, but all eyes are on the number 7 machine, as this 43-year-old out of Rouen, France, is right up there where he's happy to be, up in the point structure. He's in the top 6 right now, as Jonas Andersson and Peter Moran are dropping back just a tad. And Bartek Marzowak continues to increase the lead about 1/3 of a second every lap over Sean Tarenti, who's desperately trying to stay right there with him.
Yeah, what they've got to watch now, Bartek, is that when he comes up against the back markers, which is going to be in the next 3 or 4 laps, then hopefully he can get through them. It's very important that the back markers are in communication with their crew chiefs on the bank, and they do give these front drivers a gap so that they can get through and carry on with this unbelievable battle at the front of the field.
Yeah, you can see out in the background all the crowds that encircle this like a crescent moon. There's tremendous amounts of people. Well over 100,000 had bought tickets, and they sold it out in about 23 minutes, Jonathan. That was incredible when the tickets went out on sale. So everybody in Indonesia here this afternoon, this is the first of 2 sprint races, 18 laps, as they fight for their chance to watch speed on the water, and they're getting the world's best drivers here today.
Yeah, you can see Jonas there coming on the inside now, starting to pressurize Stark in that 4th position, Steve. I don't think it's going to be long before. And look, Jonas on the inside, he's running that boat that it's his number 2 boat, so it doesn't perform as well as his main boat, which he had problems with that you pointed out yesterday. He certainly hasn't given up on this 4th position. Stark there still running cool. Jonas overshooting the turn boy there, letting that boat run so loose on top of the water. The number 14 boat is pushing for all he's worth.
Yeah, this is the 2nd time he's run this boat in 6 years, believe it or not. So talking with him after qualifying today, he says, yeah, I got to get a feeling for this boat. It's going to take me a while. And right now, 5 laps in, he seems a bit aggressive, and that's great for Jonas Andersson and all his fans that are here cheering him on. He missed the World Championship last year by 10 laps. He had the championship in his pocket. He almost became a 2-time world champion, but for the first time in all of 2022, he had a mechanical problem. He dropped out with just 10 laps to go, and Sean Tarenti, who had been in a tremendous crash, was sitting with wet clothing on in the paddock, all of a sudden realized that, hey, I'm the new world champion.
Yeah, Stark watching him in his mirrors there. As you can see, Jonas comes through the right-hander, takes a tighter line. The problem is, when you take the tighter line, you tend to scrub off a little bit of speed, but he's still there with him. You can see Stark there, turning tight on the boys, watching every move of Jonas. It looks to me like Stark knows exactly where he is, and he knows what to do to hold up the pressure that Jonas is putting on him.
No, looks like Marit Stromoy is dropping out, the teammate of Bartek Marzowak. Marit Stromoy, who had qualified in the 10th spot, has dropped out. That's not a good sign for Stromoy Racing. But while we watch this battle here, in that battle for fourth place. Oddly enough now, Torrente is shaving that down. The distance between first and second, the real estate's getting smaller and smaller. It's now 2 seconds, so he's gained 1.3 seconds on the leader, Bartek Marzowiak, as they get closer and closer here as we've gone way past the 1/3 mark of this quick 18-lap sprint, the first of 2 races that will determine the Grand Prix this afternoon, and these will count in points. And I'll tell you something, Bartek now needs to just focus, stay on what he needs to do here as you work around some traffic.
Yeah, just looking at the boat there with Bartek there, a little bit off balance as he came through the last 2 turn boys there. The boat a little bit running a bit too loose on the water, but he seems to have everything under control now, Steve. It's still 2 seconds. You can see Torrente there trying to cut through on the inside, going around a shorter part of trying to shorten the track to try and make that gap on him, but it's still there, 2 seconds as we speak.
Yeah, Bartek got a 1/10 of a second back, 2.11 the difference between first and second place. They're closing the gap a little bit closer. It's about 12 boat lengths separating the two. And again, it's a situation of how this young driver, who for the first time in his career is feeling the pressure of leading a race. You've done that so many times, Jonathan. Does your mind change when you lead a race and you're in protective mode, or you just keep focusing on the job at hand?
You got to keep focused. You got to keep pushing. You've got to be running at 110%, because that's when these boats are running at their best on the water. But Sean, getting through back markers there, overtaking Duarte Benavente, the Portuguese driver. Maybe it slowed him a little bit there. I noticed that Bartek seemed to get through the back markers a little bit quicker, and you can see that he's increased that gap, Steve, again by just a split second. So at the moment he's still sitting pretty there. That boat running so well in these tough conditions here in Indonesia.
Yeah, it was a bit bad luck for the world champion. You mentioned he got caught up with the Portuguese driver, Duarte Benavente, the oldest driver on the tour, and Bartek took full advantage of it. He got his second back. It was down to 2 seconds. It's back up to 3.3 seconds, the difference. Wow. Yeah. So Bartek got the job done. So we know this young man who is from Poland can figure out that he can handle the pressure of being in a #1 spot. At least he can so far. We're halfway through this race. Sprint race #1 of 2 this afternoon for the Grand Prix of Indonesia.
And I think that they're both built from the same factory up in northern Italy in Como there. But I think that the boat that Bartek has got, Steve, is just slightly longer. And that means that when the conditions get rougher as the race goes on, maybe his boat is better suited. You can see he's gaining again on Sean Torrente in that second. Is he having an easier ride? Is he able to push a little bit harder as the race goes on?
We'll have to wait and see here as we've gone past the halfway point. Over down toward turn #9. Now it's a front straightaway of 520 meters. These are 9 turns, 2 right-handers. Very unusual, very technical in nature. And the drivers really have to focus on their lines, because if you get off line, you're going to lose a lot of time. And again, this battle between 2 Swedes, Eric Stark and Jonas Andersson, continues to heat up down in that 4th place between the 2 drivers, which is now just a matter of a second separating those 2.
I think if Jonas was able to get ahead of him, he'd have a bit of clear water and he'd pull away from him. But as you can see, look, as Stark turns there, Jonas is getting all the wash and the spray and finding it quite difficult to actually see as he tries to improve and close that gap with Stark.
Philippe Shep, there you see second alone. This is his brother-in-law, or I should say his ex-son-in-law out there running, Peter Moran. And the driver from Rouen is starting his 27th race, still looking for his first victory. He's got 3 podiums, and he's a good qualifier, but getting him up there. Now, really, Peter Moran, in the past, he's been 7 top 5s in his last 11 races, so he knows how to finish up in the top 5. He's doing his best to do it right now. He's in the 6th spot.
And he's, of course, we've got to bear in mind that he's running a new boat here this weekend. He has not run it in the past. It was the boat of Philippe Chiappe, 2-time world champion. Although I spoke to him after practice and he said it's a lot lighter on the water. It seems to accelerate a lot better, but it's just going to take me a little bit of time to get into the groove and know the limits of that boat.
Wow, the difference in speed between the top 2, as you saw it on your screen a second ago, just 3.9 seconds separating 1-2, and then the cushion between Torrente and Sami Celio, almost 7 seconds. Wow, so it's a two-boat battle up in the front, and then Celio is pretty much by himself, 5 seconds ahead of Eric Stark, but we're all watching the Eric Stark, Anderson, Peter Moran battle. Three-boat battle for 4th place, and that's only separated by about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, pretty even Stevens there, isn't it, Steve? There's about a second between Stark and Anderson, and you can see that the French driver Peter Moran trying everything he can. He's on the inside, outside, just trying to close down that gap between himself and Anderson. And again, back markers coming into play, Steve, for these 3 drivers. We could see a change if some of the slower drivers don't get out of the way for 1 or 2 of these drivers.
We talked about 4 different rookies this year fighting for that prestigious Rookie of the Year award. And right now, Ahmed Al-Fahim, who is the teammate of Eric Stark on that victory team, doing well. He's up in the, we take a look, he's in the 8th spot, just ahead of the American Brent Dillard with the CTIC China team, who's in the 9th position.
Yeah, just looking back as well, looking at the first 3 there, Sami Celio doesn't seem to have the pace of the 2 front drivers, does he, Steve? You've got a 2.84 second gap between Bartek and Sean, and then about 10 seconds between Sean and Sami Celio in 3rd.
Torrente's closing the gap big time, Jonathan. It's down to 2.04 seconds. He shaved 1.5 seconds. Torrente now less than 10 boat lengths, separating 1 and 2 as we work our way down to the final 5 laps of the first of 2 sprint races that we'll have for you this afternoon as we continue to watch that 4th place battle between Eric Stark and that blue boat on your right for the victory team. Jonas Anderson, the 2021 world champion. There's his wife Janie talking to her husband. And it's a full family effort, and neighbors up in Sweden, they all help out in the community. They try to help their buddy and neighbor, Jonas Anderson, the best they can to get him to have a successful season. It's kind of a great little group gathering there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the passion in Scandinavia in general for powerboat racing, especially Formula One or any form of motorsport, is quite unbelievable. And we're back there again. Doesn't seem to be too much progress made with the China team, but trying everything that they can. And
all right, here's Peter Moran. Look at him making the move now, Jonathan, on the inside, heading into the right-hander, sending Jonas Anderson way wide. So the driver from France has moved himself up, and Jonas Anderson, looks like Jonas Anderson could be coming slower and slower on the race circuit. He's slowed down, he's still running, but the yellow flag is out. There's a problem on the race circuit with 4 laps left to go. And oh my, this will make it interesting, Jonathan, as one of the Sharjah drivers went over.
Which one is that, Steve?
It's either Ferdinand or it might be Ferdinand.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, Ferdinand Zanderberg.
Oh dear.
The driver from Holland, who last year battled himself to almost getting Rookie of the Year award. This is his 2nd season. He finished 5th in the championship. And for him, he crashed out of the race in Sharjah in his last event.
Yeah, you could see the Osprey rescue team there at hand very, very quickly. The front, they got a drop-down dory. It's an inflatable boat with you can see the front end of it drops down, so that when they recover the driver out of the water, they don't have to pull him in over the boat. He floats into the boat, but looking at him there sitting on the side, Steve, it's okay with him. He looks in pretty good shape.
He's holding the green flag in his hand. Luis Ribeiro from Portugal, a UIM official. We anticipate the start. Green flag, we're back underway. And less than 2 laps to go. And here we go. The battle for the front is on in earnest. Torrente on the outside, trying to push as hard as he can with Bartek. Forced to go wide. Torrente slides around the corner. Now side by side. Torrente has the inside lane for the right-hander, Jonathan. Oh, let's see what happens. Can this Cinderella story continue for Bartek, or will Torrente end it in dreams and tears for the drive for Poland? And Sean Torrente, the 3-time world champion, with less than a lap and a half to go, has taken over the lead on the restart.
You know, we said a 3-lap dash, and that's basically what it was. And you can see now that Bartek, he just didn't quite get the pace that he wanted on that restart. Sean Torrente pounced on him and took the lead of the race.
Here on the final lap now, we hold our breath with just 3 more corners to go. Sean Torrente now with Team Abu Dhabi is trying to pull away and easily head down into turn number 9. That was the move of the day, and Sean Torrente, your 3-time world champion for Team Abu Dhabi, will circle around, come by the start-finish line, and he'll come across. And Sean Torrente picks up his 12th career victory and leads this championship. And what a great day for Bartek Marzowiak. He'll finish up 4 seconds behind. Well, there you have it. Fantastic first event, yes. And let's go to the podium now. There's Bartek Marzowiak of Poland, number 1 this afternoon. Fantastic day for him. And as I said, his 50th race start. In his 11th year, Bartek Marzowiak, what a Cinderella story for him coming back. And boy, he's been strong the last couple of races, Jonathan. And I'll tell you what, you look out on the right, there's Nicola de Saint-Germain, who is the founder and creator of H2O Racing. And then, of course, next to him, the president of the Republic of Indonesia, Joko Widodo. And the rest of the dignitaries that are here. But there you see Eric Stark on the right, and on the left is 2-time world champion Sami Selio with the Sharjah team. So all eyes glued on the driver, Bartek Marzowiak from Poland, and the fans loved it. It was a great day of racing. Too bad we couldn't get heat number 2 in all the way, but we've turned a page in our history of the sport with Bartek picking up his first victory.
Yeah, it's great to see that. I mean, he's been knocking on the door for such a long time now. As I said earlier, he's been a midfield runner and just seems to have had everything dialed in over the last 2 or 3 races. He's got that new boat. He's got a lot of confidence now. He knows he's up for the job, and he's driving superbly. And he's going to be the benchmark going forward, Steve, because at the moment, he's really hot to trot when he's out there on the water.
Yeah, you know, he went through a long period of time as we watched the fireworks display going off. And fans love that in this region of the world, and why not? Everybody does. But I mean, the thing is with Bartek, he went through a funk that went on for a long time, like 5 years. He was struggling, engine problems, boat problems, you know, but he kept a positive attitude. You'd always go around him and he'd always have a big smile on his face, and he'd say, you know, we're behind the 8 ball a little bit, but I really think that we can turn this thing around. And we're going, okay, well, we're here, let's see it. And boy, have we seen it lately. Wow.
Yeah, you know, he's had those 2 podiums. He's obviously gaining confidence. He now knows he can do the job. He can get the job done. He's got a great team of personnel behind him, and it's so nice to see that the radio man that he uses, the communication he has with the UIM officials on the starts and the restarts and so on, is his wife, and you can see his wife standing up there with him. And they do really they're very cool people, but they make a great team together. And you know, all credit to him. We've got
team manager,
and we got Marit Stromoy on the left-hand side of him there, Steve, and Marit's husband, and yeah, they're really pumped up to see Bartek doing so well with Team Stromoy Racing there. So great result for that team going forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, really coming on strongly. And Marit Stromoy, as we said on the left, she's won races, won poles herself, and trying to shake the gremlins off. She's kind of gone through a flat spell for a while. There's her husband Alberto there in the middle, and a great couple. They're constantly working. I think the thing I like the most about this team, and especially Marit Stromoy, is that she is a huge promoter of the sport. She has a 2-seater promotion boat, and for her, I mean, it's unbelievable about getting the word out in Scandinavia. Powerboat racing is really, really big in Scandinavia.
Yeah, and what a lovely shot there of Bartek on the number 1 slot of the podium there. Because let's be fair, they really have built this a crescendo for this race here, haven't they, in Lake Toba this weekend?
For those leaving us now, thanks for being with us. For my 22-year broadcast partner, Jonathan Jones of Wales, and all our great international television crew saying, Whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you may be at the moment, you've been watching the most exciting racing entertainment on water, the UIM Formula One H2O World Championship. Now, don't forget to follow us later this spring as we head back to China for the first time in 4 years, bringing you the GP of China from lovely Zhangzhou on the weekend of the 28th through the 30th of April. I'm Steve Michael saying, so long, everybody. Make it a great day.